Wanted to say one thing as an application follow-up comment to the Schlissel retort of July 28th. This is Schlissel retort July 30th, and it has to do with the ecclesiastical application of the problem that I identified in the New York Times, specifically the wholesale abandonment of a uniform, unbroken history that is followed once the victory is won by the liberals, followed by shock and dismay that anybody would deviate from the conservative bias. So suddenly the revolutionaries become conservative. And I witnessed the same thing happen in the church world when a group of churches had decided that the uniform, unbroken, absolutely universal practice of professing communion, that you come to the table at the point at which you make public profession of faith, that this was abandoned because a group of people thought that they knew better. And even though, listen, what I'm saying has nothing to do with the merits, whatever they may be, of the case for changing the practice. What I am reporting and stating and observing is not subject to debate. It's simply true. The people who changed this practice, who revolutionarily changed it and decided it wasn't for them, did not bring this for deliberation to church councils. They did not first seek to persuade people who didn't agree. They did not become a majority in any particular denomination with the historic policy, but they separated themselves from other denominations and embraced this radically new practice of pedo communion or Play-Doh communion, which had never been done before, okay? So they had no problem completely upending a received tradition that was not just most, universally, uniformly the practice and polity of the Reformed and Presbyterian churches. And then, this is the remarkable thing, when they had done it for a few years, and a pastor was called to one of these particular churches and said that that was not something he was comfortable with, it wasn't biblical, and he wanted them to change it. What do you think they replied? But we've been doing it this way for years. I'm serious. That was supposed to be self-evident as a weighty reason not to change the polity, although it had been done for 500 years in the way that this new pastor favored, and they changed it without deliberation, but simply at their own will and behest. That was okay, and that's not a violation of the conservative bias that you can't go and do things like that just because you feel like it. Although that was the case, when they had practiced it for 5 or 10 years, maybe less, I don't really know, but it wasn't more than 10. They thought that it was insufferable that anybody would dare suggest that they change that practice. Now that, at that point, that is precisely analogous to the homosexual marriage behavior. They changed a uniform practice. They meddled with words, with language. They entirely changed the whole orientation, if you don't mind me using that word, when it suited them. But as soon as they got it, they would say, but for a year we've been doing things this way, and the trajectory, whoa, the trajectory. You see, suddenly the conservative bias becomes an argument, whereas before it wasn't even an obstacle. They just spit on it to do whatever they want. The revolutionary spirit is evil, whether it appears in the church or in the world, the consequences that are evil from the evil principle vary. They're not the same in the matter of paedo communion and the matter of homosexual marriage, but they are identical in rejecting uniform, universal practice, historic practice, and imposing a brand new, out of the blue, out of their own heads, new way to do it. Whatever they claim is the argument, the way they got it done was willy-nilly, self-willed. And then once it's in place, whoa, we shouldn't be expected to change. That's unstable. Right. Okay, buddy. Have a nice night.